Just how much car can you squeeze into £3,000? Launch you down the road. These were so cool back in the day. So what was the objective? Spent several months looking at every car available in the country to find the best value car for money in the world.
There were some quite stringent criteria though. It had to be a genuine family car. Coupes weren't ruled out, more doors was better, no sheds, short MOTs, lists of advisories, no good, mechanically competent, get in, drive across Europe if I wanted to. It had to be, and this is the most important thing, interesting, a genuine petrolhead's car.
This is the X350 XJR, powered by a 4.2 litre 400 horsepower supercharged V8 connected to a 6-speed automatic gearbox in the traditional rear-wheel drive front engine layout. So what is the X350 XJR? It's a generation of XJ that was the first of the aluminium bodied type, which means it's significantly lighter than the cars that came before it. So how much did it cost me? £2,750, which leaves £250 spent on modifications, obviously.
So what did you get for 60-something thousand pounds 15 years ago when this car was new?
Xenon headlights, LED rear lights, black leather interior and 2 cigarette lighters, just in case your passengers wanted to light up at exactly the same time. A very usable rear boot, plenty of space, and a nice soft close thing that it does.
That old school look from the outside of the car, which really appeals, follows through to the interior. And what a lovely place to be.
These seats are amazing. There is so much adjustability, not just forwards and backwards and up and down, but you can tilt the back, tilt the front. You can change the length of the bottom of the seat. The headrest is adjustable. There's lumbar support which goes up and down and in and out, and the passenger seat has all the same functionality. Not only that though, but the steering column is electrically adjustable for reach and for rake, as are the pedals. You can move their position too, which means even a teeny weeny little Greek man can reach the pedals and see over the steering wheel at the same time. So what other goodies come with the car? You get a heated windscreen, electrically foldable mirrors, automatic rain sensing wipers, automatic headlights, an electric rear blind, and this, a car telephone. These were so cool back in the day. You can still put a SIM card in this or even redirect your own phone to it. A little bit too much messing around for me, and I came up with a different solution which we'll come to shortly. And for those of you under a certain age, this is an anti-theft device.
On this particular model, because it doesn't even come with an auxiliary port, I fitted one.
Let's talk about the engine, the heart of the car. Surely the reason somebody would go for an R model. Let's be fussy for a second. The normally aspirated V8 versions are initially more eager. They've got a bit more initial enthusiasm. The supercharger is a restriction to the car until the forced induction is doing its thing, accompanied by that wonderful supercharger whine. But that's not to say that it hasn't got response slowdown. It's got it in spades. I'm just trying to compare apples with apples. In fact, you can drive this car incredibly lazily with the tiniest amount of accelerator and just let the wave of torque pull you along. But it does do its best work higher up the rev range, and that's nice, because when you do want to explore the car's capabilities, there is a reward for doing so. Bimble along in drive, flex your right foot, let the gearbox select a gear for you, and it will launch you down the road. The fact that this engine has proven to be a very reliable unit capable of huge mileages is the cherry on the cake. And I'm not the first and I won't be the last to say it's a bit of a peach. I love it. So what were the negotiation points that led to me being able to buy this car for that money? The front bumper, all of it has seen better days. 3 of the 4 wheels have got some curbing. Nothing major, but worth noting. Any of these cars that you go to see are going to have 1 or 2 of these bits on it. It's not rust, as we've said, the car is aluminium. It's some kind of reaction that takes place between the aluminium and the paint. I don't understand the chemistry. What I do know is once it's done this in the first few years of its life, it doesn't get any worse. So you either live with it, or you can just plan to have it rectified at any point in the future because you know it's not going to spread.
Take a step back from the car though, and it is presentable. A used, better condition front bumper and a wheel refurb, and it would be very much so. So are there any electrical or mechanical faults with the car?
Now these cars use air suspension. Jaguar call it the CAT system, and we could go in depth about its intricacies. But long story short, that light has been on the dashboard for the previous 2 owners, the last one of which had the air pump for the suspension rebuilt, not because there was anything wrong with it, but because the light was there. And the light's still there. And there's still nothing wrong with it. So the one fault this car has got is that there's a light on the dashboard that shouldn't be there. I can live with that. So what modifications did I use the £250 for? Well, let me just say it first. You should just buy this car for £2,750 and drive it. There's nothing wrong with it. Do that. That's the sensible thing. I've never been that sensible, unfortunately. So I was going to detail the modifications, but if it's okay with you, I'm just going to summarise and I'll list them below. Some of you will have noticed the car sits a bit lower. The suspension bracket on these that holds the sensor for the ride height can be bent up and then the car comes down. It really is that simple. However, I have been very careful on this because it needs to be a usable car to find a nice compromise between it sitting lower, looks a bit better, rolls a bit less, but there's been absolutely no difference to the ride comfort at all. I've made some changes to the intake because this is the standard one, and quite frankly it's a ridiculous piece of equipment. I don't know what it's been designed for, but flow wasn't its primary aim. And you will have noticed that the exhaust is louder. I've freed that up too. So what have these, let's face it, very mild entry-level modifications done? Well, but dyno and research says 20 odd horsepower maybe, so not significant, but you can sort of feel it, definitely. And it's more than that though. The engine does feel a bit freer, it does feel a bit happier. The ride is the worst of any Jaguar made up to this point in time. There is a little bit of a floaty feel to it, but at the same time it manages to feel busy over uneven road surfaces, and if you do hit a really bad bit of road or a pothole, there is like a thud that comes into the cabin, sometimes even a shimmer that you can feel through the body shell. So the ride's no good. Well, no, it is good. It's, for a sporting saloon, it's very good. It just doesn't have the ability to recreate that magic carpet effect that its predecessors did so elegantly. So how does it handle? Well, that's where the CAT suspension seems to justify itself, come into its own. Get into a bend and the car tightens up. It does that thing that some cars can do, and it shrinks around you. balance where you can constantly adjust the attitude of the car. But things don't happen too quickly. I'm no racing driver or anything, but even I can react to what the car's doing because there's a nice big window of opportunity to do so, maybe because of the long wheelbase. Not sure how these brakes would fare in a track situation, but then that's not really what the car's been built for. I think the combination of the lighter body weight, the suspension which is actively seeking to control body roll and pitch and those kinds of things, the feel through the steering and the chassis, which is unusual for a car of its type and size, all combined to make a car that is, I'm going to stop short of calling it nimble, but you can certainly make it dance a little bit. And then when you finish being a hooligan, you can just sit back, relax, and drive across the country, continents, in absolute comfort. So the standard figures for this car are 155 miles an hour top speed. There's something you can do about that. There always is, in which case it will knock on the door of 180, and 0 to 60 of dead on 5 seconds. Simple breathing mods like this car's got, you're in the 4-second bracket. A supercharger modification, a pulley, a really cheap extra thing that you can do, and you knock a couple more tenths off. I mean, this isn't a modern 4-wheel drive turbocharged super hatch. This is a 15-year-old land yacht. Now, it is easy to lose some of that acceleration time in wheel spin, which begs the question, what happens if I just floor it? So it's the best car in the world then? Nothing wrong with it. It's absolutely perfect. Best at everything. Well, no, it's the best at nothing. Let's try and keep this in perspective. I do get carried away. Oh, it's the best car in the world. It's shrinking around me. I am a passionate kind of person, and you know, I can get very enthusiastic. But it's not a Caterham. You could fit one on the back seat almost. It hasn't got the steering of, say, a Porsche. The gearbox is, having got used to modern gearboxes, DSGs and the like, it does make the car feel dated. It does its job fine. It's a 5-speed Mercedes gearbox, but it's just not on par with the latest generation. There's no LSD available. There was no manual available. Can you imagine if there was a locking diff manual version of this available to buy when it was new? Who'd buy an E39 M5? And you'll be in these places quite regularly. So what else for the car? The ride could be better. I know I said it's very good, but it could be more Jaguar-like. I think that's the compromise that's had to be made so that it's lighter on its feet. And there's a ridiculous amount of throw to the accelerator pedal. And I've driven Jags before where it's very similar. Literally half the amount of travel would be ample. Do any of those things make me like the car any less? No. Do I like the car even more because I made the exhaust really loud? Maybe. But it is still a great old thing.
But is it the best car in the world for the money? Yes.